Hey Gabe, you have to check out this show. It's amazing.
Alright, what's it about?
The devil, except he's in our world and powerless.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, so he ends up working at McRonald's and...
I'm sorry, McWuddles?
McRonald's.
You mean McDonald's.
No, I said it right for once.
I see. Excuse me?
The Devil's Part-Timer was developed in 2013 under Studio White Fox, the same studio behind Steins Gate and Akame. God damn it! It follows the story of Sadao Mao, a part-time employee at McDonald's.
McRonald's.
Do you want to do the fucking intro?
Sure. Japan has yet again created a story based on a really weird premise that somehow still works. The Devil's a Part-Timer, also known as Haraku Mao-sama, is a 13-episode action comedy series about a demon lord, Mao, who wreaks havoc while conquering the world of Anta-Isla. However, a hero named Amelia fights back against his evil forces, and Satan is forced to retreat to, yep, you guessed it, our world, specifically Tokyo, Japan. Stripped from his magic, Satan is introduced to a teenage boy who has to work part-time at the local McDonald's to earn a living, while his right-hand general, Elcio, plays housewife back at their base of operations, aka their apartment. So anyways, Mao decides he'll climb the McDonald's hierarchy, make lots of money, and rule the world first before going back to conquer his homeworld. But what he doesn't realize is that Amelia, the hero of Anta-Isla, has followed him to our world and has her sights on killing him.
Awesome job, you barely messed up any words at all.
And you barely use your hands to talk.
What? I don't even understand what you're talking about, oh my god. What is happening to me right now? Now, as far as visuals go, the show is pretty standard. It's very clean and modern, which is a good thing, but it really doesn't allow the show to stand out in any noticeable way. That is outside of the bright and vivid colors in the real world that really set the tone for this show's comedy. By keeping the colors bright and vivid, the series is letting the viewer know right off the bat that things are never going to get too serious, which is a really good thing for a show this lighthearted. The animation is very fluid and well done, which is kind of to be expected, with a lot of visual humor to accompany it. Although I will say that the character designs do leave a bit more to be desired. Each character kind of comes off as like a visual representation of a case study in anime cliches. You've got your main character, your tsundere, your dandere, your eccentric sidekick, and moe boobs. Not to mention your bad guys with their clearly evil looking bad guy faces. Now that doesn't mean that that's all there is to these characters, but from looks alone, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Except when they were in Anta-Isla?
Oh, you mean when they try to rip off Claymore?
Just talk about the damn audio.
The audio is, well, it's kind of awesome. I personally love the catchy intro song and upbeat background music, both of which, like the color palette, really help set the humor for the show. The outro, on the other hand, felt really generic. I personally would have loved for them to keep the upbeat tempo throughout the show, but seeing as how it's become kind of a trope in anime to have a really generic outro, I can't dock it too hard based on that. Now when it comes to the voice acting, that is where the audio really shines. I personally enjoyed the sub, but as an American viewer, I freaking love the dub. The voice actors were spot on, and the dialogue hit harder, was funnier, and plain old just more relevant to me with the dub, so unless you're a hardcore sub freak, I highly suggest going dub on this one.
The story for Part-Timer is as ludicrous as it sounds, but it's so self-aware that you can't help but fall in love with it. While it starts off as a comedy series about wacky situations, it quickly evolves itself into something deeper once more heroes and villains are introduced. Despite others saying that the pacing was slow, I thought it was most appropriate. Not too slow, but not too fast. As for the comedy, romance, and the fantasy aspect, Devil's a Part-Timer uses absurd and cliche ideas and incorporates it into an outrageous yet sensational anime that is outright hilarious. As for more and more characters are thrown into the fray, such as Mao's co-workers and heroes of his own land, the entire show grows into scale. Different people have their own goals in this new world and will do their best to achieve these goals, often with comedical outcomes. But the best thing is that these outcomes aren't failures that result in comedy, but unlikely victories that are comedic, because that they are slightly believable. Although, then again, having KFC hired agents sent to spy on people seems a bit far-fetched of an idea. The only real issue with Devils of Part-Timer is a lack of a conclusion. While the show has many epic battles and showdowns with enemies, the arc wraps up nicely without nudging the overall story forward at all. The actual story ends up at episode 12, and the last episode is just a filler episode for all the characters to meet up after the climax of the last battle on episode 12. While it's nice to see all the characters back all together, it doesn't answer any of the lingering questions that many would had since episode 1. And annoyingly, it has one of those read the manga endings that really many of us hate oh so much. The greatest strength in the show is the characters, as not only does the show have fantastically written characters, but it also attempts to break preconceptions of stereotypical archetypes. Things aren't so black and white. Just because people keep saying something is good doesn't make it good, and vice versa, as this show relies heavily on its ability to create interesting dynamics between the characters. Hell, I love the first meeting between Mao, the Demon Lord, and Amelia, the hero, both completely vulnerable in a world that they don't understand, but nonetheless continue their long-running feud. I find it so funny seeing Mao try to lead a normal life while the suspicious Amelia stalks his every move, determined to catch him in the act of committing evil, and certain that behind his polite smile and a norm hardworking life behind the counter of McDonald's restaurant is a dark scheme and to take over the world.
But the show doesn't just revolve around Amelia and Mao.
I thought I was doing the character.
Shush! It's my turn to talk! Aside from the main two, there is an entire harem of supporting characters just waiting to do the forbidden dance with the devil. First and probably foremost is LCL, Satan's right-hand general, who basically lives to serve him. This guy is a neurotic mess, but probably provides the most comedic relief of every character in the entire show, and from the very first episode was easily my favorite. Next up is Chiho, who works with Mao at McRollins and is basically a run-the-mill moe girl with boobs that would break a normal person's spine. She's in love with Mao because he's the main protagonist and that's how harems work, but aside from that fact and a few throwaway one-liners, she's basically a throwaway character to me. And lastly, we have Lucifer and Susanoo, who both show up later on in the series, and while I would love to go into their backstories, it would definitely be a bit of a spoiler, so I'm not going to do that, but suffice it to say that they're both very interesting characters with decent backstories and luxurious purple hair.
Amelia, Sadao, Lucifer, and LCL all made the show extremely fun to watch. Their back and forth battering brought many funny and enjoyable moments throughout the anime. Amelia is a very cold and ruthless one. Chiho is very cheerful, attitude, and the other female lead, Susanoo, who gets introduced late in the series but turns out to be my personal favorite.
So with all that being said, where does that leave The Devil is a Part-Timer? Honestly, rating this series is very difficult because as a reviewer, you have to rate on a scale. So if I were to give the show a higher score than say something like Death Note, people would riot because the characters and story can't compare. But here's the thing. Comparing a show like this to something like Death Note is like comparing How I Met Your Mother to Breaking Bad. They're both great shows, but they just aren't comparable because one is a hardcore drama while the other is a sitcom. And that is exactly what The Devil is a Part-Timer is. A sitcom. It's a comedy wherein the characters are thrown into ridiculous situations. Hence the term sitcom. So keeping that in mind, we have to compare it against other shows in its genre, not every anime ever, and when we do that, for me at least, it kinda stands head and shoulders above its competition.
Simply put, The Devil is a Part-Timer is a hell of a lot of fun, with a detailed and well-executed plot. Characters are varied and very interesting with a blend of subtle and more cartoonish humor. The action and fight scenes are pretty common, but they're far-fetched from the focus of this entire series. This show is everything that High School DxD could have been if DxD had featured more developed script rather than that which one primarily needs: close-up on boobs, and more boobs, with some dialogue and I guess some fight scenes scattered at random points. This anime though just knows how to mix humor and seriousness very well. The Devil's a Part-Timer does not throw the more serious anti-Isla aside after changing the setting, nor does it downplay it. In actuality, it uses it to its advantage to create some truly spectacular episodes with shonen action, grave situations, and humor just at the right times. This mix is really unlike what I've seen in plenty of other rom-coms out there. It's very welcoming change that differentiates The Devil's a Part-Timer from the rest of the crowd.
And that's it for us. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like and subscribe button, comment down below, check out the annotations over here somewhere, and click on Mr. JC Green's face to go over and give him some love on his channel. Special thanks for being in the video, or go in the description below. Peace! Next up is Chiho, who works with Mao at McRollins. Dear God, I shouldn't have puffed so much paint today. Next up is Chiho, who works with Mao at McRollins and is basically a run-the-mill moe girl with boobs that would break a normal person's spine. That would break a normal person's spine. Next up is Chiho, who works with Mount McRollins and is basically your run-of-the-mill moe girl, but with boobs that would break up. I can't say this line, I've said it like 30 fucking times. Next up is Chiho, who works with Mount McRollins and is basically your run-of-the-mill moe girl with boobs that would break a normal person's spine. Stop that, cat breathe. And special thanks to Mr. JC Green for being in this video. If you'd like to see his channel, oh my god, voice. Oh, I'm at the end. What can I do? This is what I get for not making videos in so long. Shitty hair and shitty everything else. All right.